It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ferenc is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ferenc cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me at yourpersonalbank.com. So I had one of my listeners reach out to me this past week, and she kind of commented, boy, you've been hitting us with both barrels. And she is right. I have been doing that. And there's a couple of reasons why, and I want to share those reasons now and some of the things that are going on right now. First of all, this is the golden age of fixed assets. We're seeing the best numbers we've ever seen with index annuities, IULs, even dividend-paying insurance policies, all these things. It's the best since the 1970s, literally. Also, we have a historically elevated stock market. It is showing some signs of weakness recently, and there is just a lot of concern that I and many others have that we're going to be seeing some sort of correction, could be quite significant in the near future. I had another listener from this past week ask me the question, everyone I talk to and read is predicting that we're going to see a major correction or even a crash. What do you think? And my answer is, if you look at history and you look at cycles, there almost has to be a correction. Things can't go up forever. They never do. And when you think they do is when they turn the other way, when you least expect it. And as I pointed out to this listener, that Warren Buffett has the highest amount of cash, that's over 60 years, both in terms of total dollars and percentage. So when you look at somebody like that with that tremendous amount of experience and history, he's known as the Oracle of Omaha for a reason, well regarded as one of the best investors in history. I don't know what's going to cause the next correction to occur. No one really does. No one knows how much, how long, how bad. It's gone up so far to historical proportion that what goes up must come back down. It's like a law of nature. It's like gravity, if you know what I'm saying. The markets can defy gravity. They can defy logic. They can defy a lot of things for a while, sometimes even longer than many would expect. But eventually and it's all, again, about human emotions. I've shared this many times. We're well beyond any logic or, PE ratios or anything like that. We've been seeing numbers that have never existed in the history of the stock market. Again, even including 1929 and 1999. This is really being driven by emotion. There's the basic emotions of fear and greed. Greed is pretty obvious. People want to get on the bandwagon, want to make some more money. That's clear. But there's another one called fear of missing out, where they think, gosh, if I don't get on board, I'm going to miss out on the next leg up. And then at some point, inevitably, it all comes crashing down. There is some signs of weakness, and that's why my message, I guess, has been more strident, or as this listener pointed out, hitting us with both barrels. So I just feel very, very strongly that if a good chunk of your money is at risk, I find most people truly do not realize the level of risk that they're actually facing historically. This is a historic level of risk because we're at a historic level of valuations. And once people start to realize and they look at the charts and look at the numbers and see the history, they start to go, oh my gosh, that's what I find most of the time. And then they find out that they're far beyond their comfort level. Others have just kind of got stuck in this bubble and they're used to things going up, 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 up. And, human nature, we get in a comfort zone. It's natural. It's hard to break away from the crowd. We're social creatures. We want to be a part of something. You know what I mean? So to go against the crowd oftentimes is difficult. Yet any professional, successful investor will tell you, you have to do that. You have to get away from the emotions. You have to focus on logic, numbers, PE ratios, various things to win long term. You don't want to overexpose yourself. And any professional investor will also tell you that is the most difficult challenge in investing, is to separate yourself from the emotions. And my point I've been trying to make is just helping people understand, educate them that we are at historical levels. We are at historical levels of risk. And are you comfortable with that? And if you're not, there are options. Index annuities allow your money to grow unlimited upside with no downside risk. Index universal life policies do the same. Or you can get into guaranteed whole life policies that'll have a guaranteed growth each and every year, steady eddy, consistent growth. If you need a lot of liquidity, that's great. If you want to maximize returns, we have index annuities that averaged 12% returns on their indexes annually for the past decade plus. And many of them have, in the last couple of years, have returned 20% plus returns in the last couple of years. And the beauty of that is once you lock in, you don't lose. It's just that simple. Once you lock in the gains, it becomes a new principal, and the principal is guaranteed. How it all works and all that, I'm not going to get into those details so much today. If you want more information, we are getting closer to Christmas and the holidays, and I want to be a little bit softer. I'm not going to hit everybody with both punches, but I just wanted you to understand why I've been so strident, so adamant about sharing what these products can do to reduce and eliminate your market risk, lock in the gains you have. If it continues to go up, great, you can take advantage of those gains. But if it goes the other way, you don't lose what you've gained previously. Because unfortunately, this is my 26th year in the financial industry. I've seen the dot-com bubble and bust. I saw the Great Recession bubble and bust. And I saw many, many people who got hurt really badly. And so often they would tell me, gosh, I wish I had met you sooner, or I wish I'd talked to you sooner, because they lost 10, 20, 30, 40% or more even of their portfolios. And when you're in a position where maybe you don't have the time to make it back up, typical correction, by the way, is somewhere between 5 and 15 years, top to bottom. So if you go to the top, bottom to get back, just to break even. You know, if you look at your portfolio where it's at and we see a correction and it doesn't come back for 5 to 15 years from now, can you wait that long? And the answer is no. Maybe you want to lock in some of those gains. And again, the index annuities, IULs, whole life products, these can do those things, yet continue strong upside gains, reduce your taxes, reduce your market risk, all that. So I can't stress strong enough. This is probably the last time I'm going to share it this year. After the first of the year, I'll get back on the horse, if you know what I'm saying. But I just wanted you to understand why I've been so adamant, so strident, as this lady pointed out, why I've been hitting everybody with both barrels, making them aware, sounding the alarm. Somebody called me the town crier once. They gave me that nickname. I thought it was kind of funny. But it's true. I'm ringing the bell saying, hey, do you realize, do you understand where you're at, where everything is at, and where your risk is? And if you're okay with it, okay, that's fine. But most people I find are not. And human nature, human studies show about 80% of people are risk adverse. Only about 20% are real, true risk takers. So if you're part of the 80%, you're probably taking on a lot more risks than you realize. It's stressful. And if you realize it and you don't have an option, that's really stressful. So I'm giving you an off-ramp, giving you an option, yet still earning your going forward. And a quick little story, because folks really seem to enjoy those. I had a listener reach out to me this past week, an engineer, really smart guy, invested a lot of money in a lot of tech stocks and such, and had done really, really well over the last several years. But as he pointed out, getting very concerned about where things are headed going forward. And he was the one that asked me, I'm hearing from just about everywhere we're going to see a correction, likely a strong one, and I want to lock in the gains that I have. And so he's rolling over his IRAs and various things into the index annuities. And we showed him some index strategies, again, that averaged 12% over the past decade. So as I pointed out, with no downside risk, if they do the same the next decade that did the past, 12% returns on average. Last year's returns, I showed him one year, the return was 30% a couple years ago. So these index annuities can generate tremendous returns when we see strong upside gains. So when I say an average of 12, again, that's an average annual over a decade. By the way, if you do average 12% over a decade, you've way more than doubled your money in that decade. But more importantly, I think at this point in time, you've also eliminated the downside risk. And so that's what he's doing. And here's a very smart, intelligent software engineer who's rolling over a good portion of his monies to reduce that market risk and eliminate that market risk and lock in the gains he's received. And I think that's just wise. Now, there's a second reason why I've been really focused and, like I said, hitting it with both barrels is normally this time of year, I get rather nostalgic. I love the holidays. I've shared this many times on this show. I'm a musician. I've actually played professionally for a while for the military. I played in jazz groups. I'm a bass trombonist. I really love I played all through college, scholarship money, the whole deal. And I still play for fun on occasion, particularly around the holidays. Brass is in great demand, brass quintets, things like that with traditional Christmas music, playing in a church or a cathedral, something like that. I just love that kind of thing. It just really brings a lot of nostalgia, a lot of memories. And for me, at least, I had a kind of tough childhood growing up. I lost my dad in a drowning accident when I was 7. I was the oldest of 3. My mom was a school teacher, but of course at that time was a full-time mom with 3 young children. My dad was an acoustical engineer making good money. We were definitely upper middle class. And when that happened, it was sudden. It was unexpected. My dad didn't really have a whole lot of life insurance. He had some insurance from the company, but frankly, as my mom put it later, that didn't last very long. And that is one of the reasons why I'm such an adamant advocate for life insurance. If you have loved ones, I've lived it. Our life would have been a lot different if my dad had more life insurance on himself. We, after a while, had to move. We moved onto a farm, raised a lot of our own food. It was a tough but rewarding life. I learned a lot. We worked hard a lot. We actually ate well because we raised most of our food. Looking back on it, it was a very healthy lifestyle. It's what a lot of people are going back to these days. But my point I'm getting at is the holidays are very special to me because that was the one time of the year where the extended family, the uncles and cousins and aunts and all would, for several years, actually from when I was age 7 till I went to college, made a concerted effort to get together as a family to make the holidays special for us 3 kids. And we'd have the trains, that was a family tradition around the tree, and lots of presents and lots of food. And it was a joyful time. My family has not necessarily been the closest, but again, they really made a point of making the holidays special. And because my mom was a school teacher, she went back to work, of course. She did get the 2 weeks off, but they would make it really special. And that's why I love this time of year so much. But this year I've been having a really, really difficult time getting into the holiday spirit like I normally do. I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment because I'm going to share some of the reasons why, because these are things that are affecting you too, most likely.
This is Ference, host of Your Personal Bank Show. My show focuses on creating tax-free buckets of money, insured, guaranteed, highly liquid, and the ability to create positive arbitrage. Did you know this is the best time in over 40 years to invest in index annuities? An index annuity allows you to 1. Grow your money safely without market risk. Once gains are locked in, they're guaranteed against future market loss. 2. Double-digit potential upside on good market years with no losses in bad years. Principal is guaranteed. 3. A 7 to 8% fixed interest option is available in the first year. If you're interested in growing your money with potential index-related gains without downside market risk, this is the best time in over 40 years to consider an annuity. If your annuity is over 2 years old, the newer products likely have far superior potential returns. Please contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. So in the last segment, I was finishing up, if you missed it, some of the reasons why I've been hitting things with both barrels, as one of my listeners said, discussing the golden era of fixed assets. It's the best time in over 40 years for fixed index annuities, IULs, dividend-paying insurance policies. The markets have been at all-time or historical highs, starting to show some real signs of weakness. We'll see what happens. So I've been rather strident and adamant about looking to reduce risk because this is my 26th year in the financial industry. And if I didn't bring up the concerns, the obvious red flags that are there, I would be remiss. I saw the dot-com bubble and bust. I saw the financial bubble we had and then the Great Recession in 08, 09. And I believe we have a very strong possibility of something similar to one of those two periods. We'll see. It's hard to know. It's hard to predict. One of the reasons why I've been so strident. And the other one, why I'm having a real hard time getting into the Christmas spirit, into the holiday spirit. As I said, it's a time I've always loved growing up. It was a tough time, losing my dad when we were 7. But it was the one time a year, like I said, we had a lot of family traditions. All the extended family would make a point of getting together. So we'd have these big family get-togethers multiple times over a couple-week period because my mom was a school teacher. So we had 2 weeks off. So it was like Christmas wasn't one day for us. It was a couple of week time of fun, really. And we get to open up all our new presents. They always made sure we had plenty of presents. The family did. Still remember making the big train sets going around the tree and, doing the luminarias and the Christmas lights and the cookies and all the food. I mean, the music. It was just, like I said, a very special time of year that my family would go. They went all out to make it, special for us, myself and my 2 younger siblings. But the reason I'm really struggling this year is because I do this radio show, I have to do a lot of research about what's going on in the world. The show's focused. It's an economic-focused, money-focused show. As I always say, what do you talk about? Well, anything that affects your money. A lot of times that can be government policies or the economy or interest rates. For example, recently the Federal Reserve did lower interest rates another quarter point just recently, which will help in borrowing costs a little bit more. But the concerns they have behind it are, jobs are weakening. Inflation has come back off, but we're still having problems with inflation. It's still higher than the Fed target of 2%. Things are things feel really uncertain or unstable, schizophrenic even. You have a divergent economy. We have a situation where, Wall Street has been doing really well, especially in the AI space. Yet the rest of the economy has been really struggling. And there's some other problems involved with that, and it just really bothers me. And I've given a lot of thought to what is causing so much of these problems. Why is our economy so schizophrenic or feeling so uneasy, if you will? I think a lot of it has to do with the division in our country, which really does come from a political standpoint. And I heard somebody say this a while back, and I think it really hit the nail on the head. And he said, the problem with America is we're not the United States. We're not a divided country per se. It's that we are a center-right country with some hostile city-states stuck in it. And if you've ever looked at an election map, you could look at 2024, 2020, 2016, doesn't matter, even farther back than that. And if you look at an election map from a county standpoint, what you see is a sea of red. The entire country is almost completely red with a few dots of blue. In other words, there's no such thing as any blue states. There are blue cities. There are major cities in this country that dominate their state. Take California, for example. You have San Francisco, LA, and San Diego that dominate the rest of the state. Yet most of the rest of the state is red. You could say the same thing about Oregon with Portland and Washington with Seattle. You have the same thing going on even in New York with New York City. Now, there are some exceptions, like Florida has made an exception. They have Miami. Of course, Miami has been largely dominated by Cubans who tend to be pretty conservative. So that's an exception. Other exceptions are things like Texas, where you have big cities like Dallas and Houston, and of course you got Austin there too. But Texas is so big, the rest of the state, those cities just can't dominate it. And then you've got other states that are kind of your purple states that can go back and forth, the battleground states. Take Arizona, Phoenix can dominate Arizona, but it's big enough that it can go either way. Same thing with Georgia, with Atlanta. Georgia's a big state. Atlanta's a big city. And then you got your states where there isn't any really major city. Most of your Midwestern states, South Carolina, things like that, who they don't have any major, big, huge cities in their state, and they're solidly red states. So again, I think the analogy is quite accurate. Is we have a country that most of us remember, that most of us, the society that we like, that what we want to live in, that we remember from our days growing up in Christmas, like I did growing up as a kid, through most of the country. Yet you have these pockets, or as he put it, these hostile city-states plopped in the country. And why is this such a big deal? Well, as I thought about it more, it reminds me in many ways of the run-up to the Civil War. This is the thing that keeps bugging me. And I'm going to explain myself what I mean by that. Obviously, states' rights, slavery were big issues in the Civil War time. I'm a big history buff. I really enjoy reading and learning, and I've been traveling a lot, going to a lot of these Civil War battle sites, and just to learn more and understand it more thoroughly and more deeply. And you had a situation where the southern states seceded from the Union, eventually went to war because they were fighting for what they felt like were their rights. Now, whether you agree with it or not, it was right or wrong, I don't think anyone today agrees that slavery is a good thing. I'm not arguing that point. Please understand. But I want to understand the reasons why they did what they did and what they believed. They didn't want to follow the laws. They didn't feel like they were subject to the laws of the federal government, and that their states' rights laws overrode that. The Civil War settled that argument. There's the supremacy clause. Yes, there are states have rights and should do a lot more than they do. I've argued that point many times. Just read Article 10 of the Bill of Rights. It's a very simple article. It's one sentence, but it basically says, it's called the enumerated powers. It lists the certain powers that the federal government has, and then goes on and states that any other powers not listed above, things like, military, commerce, those kinds of things, so clearly under federal jurisdiction. Anything else, the rights are reserved to the states or the people. So the states should have a lot more involvement in terms of their sovereignty of what they do, but there is a supremacy clause. If a federal law conflicts with a state law, the federal law is supreme. That's the supremacy clause. And we have hostile city-states which dominate their states. Again, think Illinois, New York, all the Northeast, Boston, certainly. And then you have the states out west, California, Oregon, Washington, where you have major cities dominating the states. So the state legislatures and governors and stuff, political power is influenced by those cities. And they've decided that federal law doesn't apply to them. They're called sanctuary cities. There's multiple laws on the books. If someone crosses the border, they have broken federal law. And what a lot of people ignore, then are other laws on the books that state that a person who moves into the United States, whether legally or illegally, are required to notify the federal government within 30 days of their address. Obviously, most illegal aliens don't do that either. They also don't pay taxes on any income that they may earn. Payroll tax, that's against the law. They also don't pay federal income tax in most cases, which is also against the law. Someone who comes to this country illegally is breaking multiple federal laws, yet these states and cities have decided they're sanctuary, or in other words, their laws are supreme over the federal laws, which is the exact same fight, basically, for a different reason, but the same fight legally as we had in the Civil War. Now, I'm not saying we're going to lead completely into a civil war, but it's just a nagging thing that bothers me and continues to bother me. And I'm having a hard time getting into the Christmas and everything that it represents. I'll get there. I'm working on it. But I'm having a hard time because I'm seeing so much of this. And we have people who are in positions of power, both in state, local, state, and federal levels, are actively defying those laws. Recently, the new Mamdani, the new mayor of New York City, put a video out educating illegals on how they can avoid ICE. I mean, it's just one of many, many examples. And what concerns me, what bothers me, is what kind of country are we going to be going forward? What kind of society are we going to be going forward? Are we a country of laws? Do laws even matter? Or is it a situation where if you decide, for whatever reason, you don't agree with that law, You can openly defy it and even help others defy it, which is exactly what sanctuary cities are doing. It's not healthy. It's not good. The situation cannot continue the way it is permanently. Things are going to come to a head one way or the other, and it could get settled peacefully, which is my preference, obviously, or not so peacefully. And that's where my concern comes. I don't want to come across as so heavy, especially so close to Christmas and the holidays. But I just want you to understand where my heart is at, where I'm coming from. And maybe this is par for the course. This is the time of year where I start thinking deeply about things and analyze the past year and think about the next year and what I want to, goals and what I want to accomplish and what I can do and what difference can I make. And I recognize this show has become a platform. Many times I've shared thoughts and ideas that have been then expanded elsewhere to national platforms. Even national politicians have echoed some of these things. So I know there's a role here. I guess I'm sharing from my heart. I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment. I got some things that really kind of back up some of the concerns that I have, and I think you'll find interesting. So stay tuned.
Concerned about market risk? I'm Ference Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. The S&P 500 valuations are higher than at any time ever recorded in stock market history. This includes 1929 and 1999. We all know what happened afterwards. It wasn't pretty. Elevated valuations increase risk to the downside. Annuities and Your Personal Bank offer unlimited upside with no downside market risk. Your principal is guaranteed. Contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com to maximize returns, reduce market risk, increase liquidity, and reduce taxes.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. The median rent for apartments has now fallen about 5% from a year ago. It's been falling every month now for several months in a row. And it only makes logical sense because, according to official numbers, about 2.5 million illegals have either been deported or self-deported. It's basic supply and demand. When you have less people, you have less supply for housing. So obviously, rents and cost of housing is going to decline if you have people leaving. But what's infuriating about this, according to official government statistics, of all the families that are receiving food welfare, 48% are illegal aliens. Legal immigrants, by the way, account for another 34%, which means 82% of people on food stamps are immigrants, which are leeching off the taxpayer. Why are we paying these taxes? Why are we supporting these people? Do laws even matter? How can somebody come into our country illegally? They broke the law, continue to break the law because they're not reporting where they live. They're not paying their taxes, their payroll taxes, if they do work. They're not paying income taxes. They're not contributing to the society. And I hear this argument all the time. But the studies show that only the top 10% of legal immigrants actually are net contributors to the society. In fact, the other 90% cost us more than they put into the system. So this whole idea that, we're a country of immigrants and all this stuff, you're comparing that to the Ellis Island era where people did come here legally. By the way, there weren't as many as there have been the last few years, both percentage and total numbers. But those people came here for a new life. They wanted to be part of America, the land of opportunity. They wanted to assimilate. They wanted to become Americans. They wanted to contribute. 82% of the people on food stamps, for the most part, they don't want to assimilate. They don't want to contribute to the system. They don't want to become Americans. In fact, many of them hate our country. And they just want to leech off the system. So why are we paying for this? They're not even supposed to be here. And what's so frustrating is both political parties keep paying for this. the reason food is so expensive is, again, according to the government, 42 million people are on food stamps. So our taxpayer dollars are paying for 1 out of 7 people in this country, of which 82% of them are immigrants. Half of them, roughly, are illegals. Why are we paying for over 20 million illegals food? They don't belong here. They broke the law. And recently, the U.S. Department of Housing Secretary confirmed that the previous administration allowed illegals to purchase homes in America, and American taxpayers were buying their homes. Literally, their mortgage payments. Now, the good news is the Housing Secretary is working with the Federal Housing Administration to crack down on government-backed mortgages for illegals. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But they've also taken away FHA-backed mortgages from illegals that were provided during the Biden administration. Again, does the law matter? It's just the Biden administration turned a blind eye. They just chose not to enforce the actual laws on the books. So not only many of these illegals came here across the border illegally, continue to break the laws by not reporting where they lived, not paying taxes, etc., but then on top of that, illegally getting government-backed loans, mortgage payments, and FHA-backed mortgages, all illegally, because these are laws on the books. They were just, the previous administration chose not to enforce the laws. And a new Pentagon audit found that the Biden administration allocated over $14 billion to resettle more than 75,000 Afghan refugees. The Biden administration decided to leave Afghanistan. Well, they brought over 75,000 refugees, quote unquote, Afghan refugees. It's been now congressional testimony and admitted that they were largely unvetted. Most of them weren't vetted at all. So, frankly, some of them they brought across were and are terrorists or known or suspected terrorists. They dumped these 75,000 unvetted Afghanis into U.S. towns and cities. And the amount of money that was spent to bring those people over here was $189,000 per person. And then you have this particularly egregious example of an illegal alien who's an Illinois cop. He was picked up by ICE in October of 2025, and he has since been rehired by the Hanover Police Department. How in the world does an illegal alien get a job as a cop enforcing the law? He gets picked up by ICE, then gets apparently released somehow, and gets rehired by the police department. Do laws even matter? And why does somebody who has actively broken the law now a cop enforcing the law? How can that be right? And this has been public record now that's been confirmed that during the Biden administration, approximately 4 million non-citizens received Social Security numbers. Now, if you get a Social Security number, that basically opens you up to all types of federal benefits and, in most cases, allows you to vote, which also goes into the whole thing about do laws matter, election integrity. We have something like a dozen or so states, all blue states basically, who do not do voter ID. Why should we accept the results of those states who don't vet who's voting? Only citizens are supposed to vote legally. We and they have no way of knowing of who actually voted. In fact, California has gone so far as to make it illegal to ask for voter any ID when voting, which just doesn't, it's all on the honor system, right? Yeah, I trust all those people, don't you? I mean, the results of any California election should be completely thrown out until they get a legitimate third-party audit. That's the way things should be, yet so far they're not. And that's where I think a lot of the frustration is coming in, because yes, there's a lot of things that the Trump administration has done that are positive, but there's been so much fraud and abuse and just willful blindness to law. And it's brought in millions, tens of millions of people. The official numbers are 53 million non-native people in this country. Those are the official numbers. No one really knows. Why are all these people being allowed into this country when we have an affordability crisis? It's common knowledge. We have a shortage of about 4 to 5 million homes in this country. Well, why would you let in tens of millions of people? Whether it be illegals or legal immigrants, Why are we still letting in over 1 million legal immigrants per year through H-1B visas and other types of student visas, work visas, you name it? Unemployment, particularly in the younger generations, is approaching 25% of college grads for the last couple of years. Companies are laying people off. The Federal Reserve even recently pointed out that they cut interest rates because of a weakening labor market. Okay, you got a weakening labor market, and you're letting in over 1 million people every year legally to take jobs from citizens. How is that right? See, that's the next big fight, isn't it? And what's really ironic, and this is what really sticks in my craw, and it gets me upset and frustrates me, but yet gives me a call to action. See, anger can be good, by the way. I'm going to sidebar on this for a sec. A lot of people are afraid of anger. But even Jesus got angry. He got angry with the money changers, chased them off with a whip. See, there's a time for righteous anger. There's a time, and anger can be a positive emotion if it's turned into action or positive action. Anger can also turn inward and can destroy you. So it's a powerful emotion. So having some anger is actually a good thing if you turn it into a positive result, having some righteous anger. And I guess that's where I'm at. It's this righteous anger of seeing people blatantly breaking the laws, willfully ignoring them for their own benefit. Many in positions of power, politically, and big corporations have found it beneficial to allow millions of people into this country, whether it be for cheap labor or they can count them in the census so they can gain more House seats and more electoral college votes. Mostly those happen to be in blue cities, the hostile city-states, as I stated earlier, so they can gain more political power. It's estimated about 25 to 30 of the House seats in the U.S. House of Representatives currently are being represented by illegals. How is that right? How is that lawful? So we're a nation built on laws, on justice, representative republic. We're not a democracy. Democracy is mob rule. The majority can vote and take away the rights of the minority. And in fact, if you read the Federalist Papers, all of the founders, whenever referred to democracy, spoke about it in a very negative connotation. And democracy is nowhere in the Declaration or the Constitution. We're a representative republic, and here's the big difference. Declaration states our rights are given to us by God. They can't be taken away by man. That's the thing that those that are trying to grab power try to take away. That's what dictators do. That's what tyrants do. And that's what the founders were against. But you have to have the rule of law. You have to have a moral base. There has to be a right and wrong for a representative republic to last. After they had passed the Constitution, somebody asked Ben Franklin, and they said, Dr. Franklin, what type of government do we have? He stated, a representative republic if you can keep it. Takes an educated electorate. We can't have a bunch of freeloaders who just vote to get more goodies. And unfortunately, we have a large number of those. Let's take the food stamp program, for example. Federal government says there's 43 million people on that. And when you dive into it, 82% are legal and illegal immigrants, which neither of those be eligible for that program at all. Even if you're a legal immigrant, why should taxpayers have to pay for your food? If you can't afford to buy your own food, go back home. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have to pay for your food, and you shouldn't have to pay for somebody else's food either who came from somewhere else. And best estimates are upwards of 90% of food stamp recipients are fraudulent. Well, 82% we know are because they're immigrants. They have no right to be on the program. So there you have, 30 million freeloaders? How many of them are voting? Or at least they're getting counted in the census, because that's another thing. Why in the world should a non-citizen be counted in the census, which is then used to appoint congressional House seats and electoral college votes? That makes no logical sense. That's not legitimate. I could go on, but there's some good news. There are some things that are positive, and I want to kind of finish up with those, and maybe that is what will help get me, and hopefully some of you, into the Christmas spirit. So stay tuned.
This is Ferentz, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Your Personal Bank is a financial concept that allows you to grow your money insured with guarantees, income tax-free, and highly liquid. Also, you have the potential to continue to earn interest on money you invest in other assets, purchase items, or pay expenses. How can you do this? First, invest in a high cash value policy to earn dividends. If you leave money in the policy, it'll grow like any investment, insured with guarantees and tax-free. Second, we establish a bank line of credit using the cash in the policy as collateral. When you access funds, you receive them from the bank. Typically, dividends earned are higher than the interest charged by the bank. You keep the difference. This is known as positive arbitrage. If you want to earn interest on money you spent or invest elsewhere, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. So as infuriating as many of these issues and concerns are, and they are, the Trump administration has been doing yeoman's work in a lot of these areas. They've been fighting battles left and right. Congress has done little to help, little to none. They've been fighting mostly the judiciary branch. And I saw recently that, as we know, almost every step of the way, the Trump administration has been trying to implement some of these either cost savings or enforcing federal laws that are on the books. And at nearly every turn, the judicial system has thrown up roadblocks. Well, on appeals, the Trump administration has won 91% of their appeals so far. That's a remarkable record. So that's something to be encouraged about. Yes, it's good that 2.5 million illegals have left the country. Approximately 700,000 of them were deported. The rest were self-deported. Many people wish the numbers were much higher, but I also understand that the administration's only been at it for about 8 months, 7 or 8 months. They've had roadblocks thrown up left and right by the judicial system, but most of those have now they've won on appeal, so it's opened up their ability to ramp this up. They've also had the funding. That's the one law that Congress did pass, securing the border, hiring more ICE agents, things like that, so this deportation can accelerate. The people that don't belong here, again, I see no reason why you or I, as law-abiding citizens, taxpayers, should have to pay for somebody else's food. I'm sorry, I just don't feel that generous. Look, if somebody's down on their luck and they're a citizen, by all means, I have a heart for that. But it's just been too much, too many freeloaders, too much this fraud. Again, with just the food program alone, 43 million people on it, 82% of them are immigrants, roughly half are illegals, legal immigrants. None of the immigrants should qualify for food stamps. That should be reserved for citizens only. So that's only about 20%. It's like 18%. That's it. And I'm sure there's some citizens that are gaming the system too, but it's obviously a much smaller percentage than the immigrants. And I guess if we weren't having to pay for all those extra people, and we didn't have, that's part of the reason why we have all this debt that we're dealing with, which is causing inflation. Everything costs more. I don't know about you. Are you tired of paying for what stuff costs at the grocery store? Yes, gas has come down. I'm thankful for that. But food prices down a little bit. What would cause food prices to go down? Obviously, less people. We're seeing that with rentals, for example. Get more people out of here. So that's the good part, is more people get out of here that don't belong and shouldn't be here, did it illegally, jumped the line, broke our laws. Some of that stuff will get more affordable. So I guess that's where we take a deep breath. Just got to have a little more patience. But there's some other good news in this regard. One of the things in the law, the big, beautiful bill that did pass, it made some changes to the SNAP program, the food stamp program. Requires states to lower error rate. Previously, they could have high percentages of errors, which meant they were paying people that weren't qualified or were dead or paying them multiple times, things like that when they did an audit. Well, now, based on their error rate, determines on how much the state has to pay for the program. The Fed still provides the majority, but literally for some of these states, this could cost millions and millions of dollars. So it's forcing the states to clean up their act, which that's a really good thing. Obviously, there's work requirements now that are going into place. I mean, if you can't work 80 hours a month or volunteer or go to school for 80 hours a month and you're able-bodied, I'm sorry, you don't deserve for you or I to have to pay for your food. That is not generosity. That is not charity. That's enablement. I'm not interested in enabling people. I am interested in charity and helping somebody who's genuinely down on their luck, or maybe they're truly disabled. See, this whole setup has really been a corrupt NGO conveyor belt, and an NGO is a non-governmental organization. Well, it turns out that every quote-unquote refugee they bring into the country, $2,425. Lutheran social services and Catholic charities have literally received tens of millions of dollars from these programs. It's not immigration, it's a racket, and it's not compassion, it's commerce. It's not diversity, it's a business model glued together with taxpayer money. If you cut the money, I would say, if you want to understand something, follow the money. These charities, and I sad to say, some of them Christian ones, like Catholic charities, Lutheran social services, have turned into nothing more than immigration mills to make money. And it's really frustrating because they try to make it sound like they're helping people and the stranger and the common good and serving our brothers and sisters. No, it wasn't Christian duty. It was a federal business operation. It was a way to make money. And those people should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. This isn't compassion. They discovered funding and they got greedy. Each immigrant not only generated over $2,000 in federal payments, but housing funds, food programs, legal services, transportation budgets, caseworker salaries, and other emergency response add-ons. They made millions. Catholic Charities was openly stating, well, we treated it like a disaster response, but it wasn't a disaster. U.S. citizens didn't vote for this. We didn't ask for it either. And we had no say. All we knew is millions of people started showing up. This reshaped communities, increased crime, increased inflation, less jobs available, particularly for our younger people, driving wages down. And the organizations behind this, they hide under what they call Christian love. Well, many of them were actually left-wing networks, Islamic organizations, religious nonprofits, and Republicans did nothing about it. You know, evil only thrives when good men do nothing. So although you have these left-wing organizations doing this, you had people on the other side of the aisle, Republicans primarily, who stood aside and just watched it happen and didn't say or do anything. They probably, in many cases, benefited from this. Those aren't good men either. If you witness a murder and do nothing about it, you can be charged being an accomplice. You're just as guilty as the murderer that killed the person. And here's a perfect example. Ilhan Omar, the representative in Minnesota from Somalia, she posted in December of 2018 on social media, Lutherans sponsored our family. This is all coming in full circle, and it's a blessing. Thank you for helping me make that cool connection. Lutheran services brought in Ilhan Omar to our country. You have the legal immigrant game, too. And recently, the Trump administration has put a $100,000 fee for H-1B visas. That's a good start, and that'll stop a lot of the lower income H-1B visas. By the way, something like Amazon, 80% of their low and middle entry jobs go to immigrants. Walmart, they're bringing in H-1B visa people from other countries. It's supposed to be highly qualified. What, to work at Walmart? Really? Now, they've announced they've pretty much stopped it because they can't afford to continue. But you know who can? A lot of these tech companies. Why? H-1Bs are typically hired as software engineers around 100 to 110,000 versus about 130,000 for U.S. software engineers. They hire them for about 20 to 30% less. And if you take that over a 6-year period, the tech company, saved about $200,000 in salaries. Because, by the way, many of these visa programs, the companies don't have to pay payroll tax either. If the total savings for a software engineer that works for a company for 10 or 15 years is in the $300,000 to $500,000 range, a $100,000 fee isn't going to fix that. It'll slow down the lower income jobs, but it won't slow the software tech engineers, for example. And by the way, a foreign student on an F1 student visa can apply to bring in their immediate family via F2 visas, and they can do that immediately. So if we bring in a student visa, they can just bring in their whole family. This is true for many of the other work visas also. J1 visa holders don't pay federal payroll tax. F1s, H2As, M1s, and Q1 visa holders don't pay federal payroll taxes. Illegal aliens working under the table don't pay federal taxes. And the companies hiring them don't pay either. You see where the problem is? Like I said, we've had a lot of problems, a lot of fraud, a lot of abuse. We've brought in over 50 million people that are currently living in this country that are foreign born. Many of those illegal, many of those fraudulently brought into this country legally. The Trump administration has stated that they will go back and vet all these people that have come in over the last 4 or 5 years. That's a good start. But as much as people complain about the Trump administration and what they're doing, they're being rather soft, in my opinion, and I have a historical precedent. During the civil rights era, when Ole Miss refused to allow a black student to enroll in their college, do you know that JFK federalized the Mississippi National Guard and brought in 30,000 troops? 20,000 of them were regular Army troops. That stopped the state of Mississippi dead in their tracks. So the people complaining about a few hundred ICE agents going into a city, recently Charlotte, North Carolina, where they estimated 150,000 illegal immigrants living in that city alone, and they had a few hundred ICE agents and people were getting upset, that's nothing compared to what JFK did for civil rights. I want you to keep that in mind. My hope is the Trump administration ramps this up and actually fixes the problem, fixes the affordability issue, fixes the housing shortage, fixes the jobs problems, fixes the crime issues. They can do all of this by just getting rid of the people that don't belong here. I'm going to do my best this next week to calm down and try to really focus on the Christmas spirit, because as I started in the beginning of the show, I really do love Christmas. I really do love this time of year, and I love all the traditions and the music and everything about it. So I'm going to do my best to grab a hold of that holiday cheer and enjoy this time, because we are blessed to be in this country. There's many problems that we have, and hopefully it can be fixed. Do my best to do my part to encourage people to do that. But in the meantime, I will want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Stay tuned next week to the Your Personal Bank Show for more great information. If you want info on how to reduce your market risk, maximize your returns, reduce your taxes, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com. And as long as it's on our money, in God we trust.
Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice.
I'm Ference Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. This is the golden era of fixed assets. Annuities and guaranteed lifetime income are paying the best rates in over 40 years. If you looked at annuities over 2 years ago, the numbers have increased significantly. If you own an annuity over 2 years old, the new products can not only pay your penalty to switch, but are often guaranteed to outperform your current product. For more info, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422. That's yourpersonalbank.com.